Resource management plan. Managing resources is another sort of critical element within any project environment. In this particular case, for the project that I was working on, I developed a project management plan, but it wasn't as detailed as normally typically find resource management plans to be, because the contract that we have with the government, before we initiated the project, within that contract, the business produced an overarching resource management plan, and each of the projects contained within this contract is compliant with that overarching resource management plan. In this particular case, we made a list of all the resources that were available to us. We also estimated how much time we need off of each, and how much each resource will cost us. Majority of the resources were the team members within CGI, but there were also resources like software, computing, digital equipment, digital resources like softwares, websites, tools, and things of that nature. So we identified all of these. We also justified the use of them. So it wasn't just the case that we got the most expensive or the highest spec computers, things of that nature. We analysed the need for them, to see whether we could perhaps reuse some of the resources that were available, freely available within the business, and also we made very careful decisions whether we needed to purchase new resources or whether there was an alternative that we could use within the business. So that allowed us to keep the costs to a minimal. We also planned for things like sickness, for things like downtime, for staff being off, and I also produced a holiday tracker to track when the resources were in office, when the resources were out of office. We also have a tool in CGI that also monitors where each of the resources are, so which site they're working on. Are they working from home, or whether they're in a particular office. So we also monitor whether staff are working from. We also incorporate things like communication lag. We also incorporate things like not all of the members will be 100% productive all of the time. So we also incorporated that within the resource management plan to make sure that we're getting the best out of the resources that we have. Once we've identified the different resources that we need, we also identify how long we need those resources for, and we make a plan, and we make a sort of a Gantt chart out of that, but we use Excel to do that, to monitor how many hours we need each resources, how many hours each day, and how many hours in a month, and we sort of make a note of that in that spreadsheet. When we need to acquire resources, we usually raise an order to the business, and then that gets processed, and then the business allocates those resources to the project code that we have for each project. And each of those resources are billable to that particular project code, so we have a track of expenditures per project. So we can report those to the business, and we can report that to the client. When we have our fortnightly meetings to go over all the work that is done, the retrospective meeting to go over all the work that's been produced over the last 2 weeks, we also analyse the productivity of it, and how much each of the resources have been productive, and any deviations from that gets levelled out going forward and is agreed by the various stakeholders. Although it's not necessary for each of the projects to have their own independent resource management plan within CGI, I think it's a good activity that each of the projects within CGI should have an individual resource management plan that is quite detailed, because it just gives the project manager a better idea of how to manage resources, rather than sort of play by ear. I think acquiring resources is quite easy within CGI. Once we raise the order, it's down to the business to sort of process all of that and to justify whether the project actually needs the resource or not, and then the project manager is allocated that particular resource. So it's not really too difficult in that term. So I don't think there is any improvement to be suggested in that particular area. Management of the resources and monitoring the process, I think there could be some improvement there, and I would suggest the use of technology to analyze the productivity of each and every single individual involved, every single member that's involved. So analyze their productivity, analyze their sort of downtime, analyze how much time they took to produce a certain piece of code, to produce or to test an application, or to do whatever task they were allocated. So I think that might be a good way to monitor and to build an idea of how much time certain tasks take, and how we can sort of make that process much more efficient. So ultimately, it's a better service, and perhaps a more cost-effective service for our clients. The business has a good change management system and a change management process, so I don't think there is much improvement to be made over there.